2-part video explaining the entire lore and story in Bonelab. Where are we? Some sort of black abyss with a magic mirror, a random pedestal, and some dice. In Bonelab, you're playing as yourself, literally your consciousness, and we start the game in the Voidway. If you don't know what the Voidway is, you'll want to go watch my Boneworks explainer just to make sure you're familiar with some basic concepts like the Void. But just as a reminder, the Voidway is a dimension that exists outside of space and time, and void energy is used to make virtual worlds. So in Bonelab, you start with your consciousness in the Void, represented by this polyblank avatar. We might as well see what this dice does, and oh, would you look at that? It gives you a random peasant avatar. Suddenly a noose appears, and with no other choice, we put the noose around our neck, and whoa, what's happening? Where are we? We're suddenly transported to a simulation called Fantasyland, specifically in a town called Heaven's Reach, and we are now embodying a villager who seems to have summoned our consciousness here. At least that's according to a message now deleted from Alex, the Stress Level 0 creative director. The people pull the lever to execute us, and as we sit there either holding ourselves up or hanging helplessly, a flash of lightning makes a knife appear with a radio announcer voice.
Look, folks, this stainless steel signature edition blade will cut through anything, but it's not going to stick around long at the nice price of $19.99, so call in right now and get cutting.
I wonder whose voice that is. I'm sure we'll learn more about them later, but for now, let's save ourselves from dying. With the knife, we cut ourselves loose and fall to the bottom of the pit below. Looking around, there's tons of bones, indicating that we aren't the first person Heaven's Reach has executed. Moving through the cave, we find a monolith with the precepts of harmony of Heaven's Reach. We and all of the people who were executed before us must have broken one of these rules. Maybe it was pay no heed below the belt, if you know what I mean. While it's not clear what rule was broken by the villager we now embody, it would make sense that they broke the last rule by summoning us. That is, rejection of modification to body, mind, and environment. They modified their mind by summoning us to embody them. As we move through the cave, you'll notice that it's starting to look more and more industrial with pipes peeking through. We aren't entirely in Fantasyland anymore. In fact, we are apparently connected to MythOS City. MythOS is basically a virtual metaverse and operating system created by Monogon Industries. In Boneworks, MythOS and Fantasyland were still in construction and were almost ready for release. And in Bonelab, both of them have already been released to the public, it seems. This is based on the poster of a magazine reviewing Fantasyland dated the year 97, the same year that MythOS was supposed to release according to the museum in Boneworks. So here we are, and as we look for a way out of the catacombs, we come across a lot of clipboard messages, also known as mana chats, left behind by various people. The first clipboard we encounter is from the Heaven's Reach Grand Elder saying that the people of Heaven's Reach have decided to seal up these tombs. For too long have they allowed the subterranean demons to toy with them. This seems to be a reference to the Fantasyland cast members who are workers from MythOS that apparently come to study the Fantasyland simulation. But the people of Fantasyland have started to become suspicious of the cast members and start to see them in a negative light. So they've cut off these catacombs, allowing the people of Fantasyland to go fully self-sustaining. As a result of this, the cast members suggest abandoning their research and sealing off any back paths to myth. This explains why later on we'll see lots of quarantine doors blocking the way. As we move through the catacombs, we come across living skeletons. The Heaven's Reach elders refer to these skeletons as the horrors of keeping souls alive while the flesh decays. In other words, necromancy. But a note from the cast members suggests that the skeletons are simply sentient decorations, or in other words, plain old decorations to help with the fantasy aesthetic, but happen to also be made of artificial intelligence. That same note expresses ethical concerns of having torture weapons here with the AI. Of course it's just for the fantasy aesthetic, and of course they aren't abusing the artificial entities in any way, but it still feels wrong. The cast member speculates, is MythOS running a Stanford prison experiment on the people of Heaven's Reach? The Stanford prison experiment was a real-life 2-week psychological experiment from the 70s that put a bunch of participants in a prison simulation where volunteers were randomly selected to be guards or prisoners. The study was to see how the participants reacted to environmental variables. For example, dressing up the prisoners in dehumanizing outfits, and then also giving the guards uniforms and batons to assert their authority. What ended up happening is that the participants assigned to be guards ended up becoming more and more brutal in their treatment of the prisoners, causing such extreme psychological abuse that the experiment ended after just 6 days. It is critiqued as the most unethical psychological experiment in history, and here a cast member is questioning if they're being put through something similar. Moving through the catacombs, we see a sign that says, "Ye be warned, lava." While this sign is warning us literally of some lava ahead, lava itself seems to be important or even symbolic. In fact, in the very next room, we find several clipboards that show the origin of the infamous Lava Gang. Lava Gang first made an appearance in an update to Boneworks on a clipboard. They're essentially hackers and modders that reside in the Void. They use their unparalleled understanding of the Void to wreak havoc on many realities like they did in Boneworks. The clipboards we find here tell us a little bit more about the Lava Gang and how it started. Apparently, the Lava Gang started as cleaners from Fantasyland who wanted to smuggle out Fantasyland data to test and create things outside of the control of MythOS. They get their name from lava because they want to cleanse everything with lava and rebuild from scratch. They just want to create. And honestly, that sounds really nice. We've been cast out from Fantasyland, presumably for modifying our mind, so I wonder if we could join the Lava Gang somehow.